Hello there guys, welcome to another video. Today I want to show you my vintage smartphone collection or retro smartphone collection. I don't know what you call it. Um, those are smartphones that I've collected over the years. I do have a lot of junker smartphones which either have smashed screens, don't turn on, or have other problems. But those are the ones that I've kept because once I got them, they were just not worth it to sell, or I found them cool and bought them myself. And so, yeah, that's basically the story. Now, I know you see two relatively modern smartphones in this lot. Of course, for any of the spoiled YouTube review kids, that's of course not new anymore, but for me it is. We got here this iPhone 7, which is my daily phone. I just thought I'd include it in here. This is a 32 gig model in jet black, and at least I think it's jet black. Maybe it's space gray. I don't know. I've replaced the screen with a original refurbished one, so I basically have no loss in quality of the screen. That was important to me. It could need a battery replacement though anytime soon, but I'll keep it for now the way it is. But I think in the next half year or something, I'll put a new iFixit battery in here or something, and so it lasts me a little longer. But apart from that, this is a great phone. It's plenty fast for me. It's got a decent camera for me. I don't need anything better than that. I'm not the biggest fan of the new style of iPhones, mostly because of their price, but also I kind of miss the Touch ID on those. So yeah, I decided to stick with this iPhone 7. Well, what do I think? I think I have it now for no, not a year yet, but like maybe 10 months. And yeah, it's been doing great so far. So that is my daily phone. And before we get into the real vintage ones here, I'll go through one by one. We'll also take a look at this. This is my previous phone, a iPhone SE, and I still think this is the coolest iPhone ever made. I personally think that because it is a small phone, and that's something very rare these days. I did have an iPhone SE before this as well, but it was a 16 gigabyte model, and so upgraded to a 32 gigabyte model, and that is this one. However, when we attempted to replace the battery in this with a new one, we unfortunately smashed through a flex cable, which rendered the power button, the volume button, and the silencing button useless. So I went with this for a couple of months, and got a chunker iPhone SE with a dead motherboard and swapped the motherboard from the screen from the broken one with the button problem into this one. So the shell here is actually the chunker iPhone, and the battery too. The battery was still pretty good back then. I don't know how it is right now. Just check here, 100%. Ooh, well, I never really trust these. I just like to plug it in a coconut battery and see how much it really is. But yeah, it's been doing great. I replaced it because it starts to come apart here. It has a problem with the front camera. There's some chunk in the camera, and it makes it look kind of blurry. And yeah, it was showing its age a little bit on opening up apps and whatnot. But hey, I could still use that, and this is probably my favorite iPhone ever made. It still resembles the OG iPhone look, which I really love a lot, but it's still small, and yeah, it's got a headphone jack, something that my phone doesn't have. And I've hated the situation where I had to use the adapter many times. Anyway, iPhone SE 32 gig. Now let's go into the really old ones here. This one is an iPhone 5. I bought that not too long ago for only 10 euros. It had a software issue, and you will see I usually tend to go for the cheapest stuff possible because I'm sometimes a cheap ass, but also because I like to fix things. And this was a simple fix. All it needed is a new software, and it was up and running. Now, as you see here, this is not iOS, I think 8 is the latest one that I had on here before. This is indeed iOS 6. Now, I decided to put iOS 6 on here because I have already a lot of iPhones, and so I might as well just make a little like software archive, software retro museum thing with old apps and whatnot, and haven't really got around to the apps all that much, but I downgraded this to iOS 6, and it is possible because of the awesome jailbreak. And it's called Nightshade or something, and yeah, it basically downgrades this to any version you want. You can downgrade this to iOS 7, to iOS 6.0 if you wanted. I decided to downgrade it to 6.1.3, and yeah, it's running super fast. I remember when these came out, this was of course the first bigger iPhone, the first iPhone with a 4-inch screen, and it was so fast, and it is very fast on iOS 6. It isn't super slow on iOS 8 either, I have to say that. But on iOS 6, this thing just flies. I mean, nowadays iOS 6 is kind of outdated, but it just opens all this stuff so quick. Look at all of this. Boom, boom, boom. Still the old school multitasking there. And also this iPhone works perfectly. And there's something special about it. I mean, it's not in the best of condition, and I don't have any accessories for it. I only have accessories for actually one phone here in this whole lot. There's a little scratch here on the corner. It was probably dropped multiple times. Back is fine apart from that. It's a scuff up there. But it works perfectly, but there's something special, and that is it is the 64 gigabyte model. So that is a pretty rare iPhone 5, because at least here in Austria, or well, I think in the majority of the world, in the iPhone 5 days, not a lot of people bought the 64-bit version because they were super expensive back then. That was the high-end model. I don't think there wasn't a higher-end iPhone available. So that was the top-notch iPhone when was that released? 2012 something? I don't know. Now this is the iPhone which kind of draws the line between usable and vintage. You could give this to like a person who doesn't need to do a lot of stuff. You could still go on with this, but I'd say the iPhone 5S is an iPhone that you can still use on a daily basis. I've sold a couple of iPhone 5S to people. It still runs iOS 12, which is reasonably up to date. It's plenty fast for most needs. Of course, don't expect, cutting edge performance and all that, but the iPhone 5 is getting a little vintage, and so I think here is the line where between vintage and usable iPhones begin. Of course, that will, when years go on, that will go back to 5S and 6 eventually, but I think still iPhone 5S and 6 are totally usable phones. Again, if you're not some spoiled YouTube reviewer. Anyway, I remember when this came out, like all the kids were like freaking out, I gotta have it. Oh, I sure wasn't one of them. Alright, so iPhone 5, kind of ramble along about that, pretty long, but it was a pretty special phone when it came out. I say that because just found it so cool. Next up, we get here an iPhone 3GS. That was the predecessor of the iPhone 4, successor of the iPhone 3G, and this is still the vintage iPhone look, the original iPhone look. Yes, it is in terrible cosmetic shape in the back, but that can be fixed maybe with some rubbing alcohol or something, just getting the sticker residue off. I repaired that. I think I mentioned that in one of my vlogs. It had a smashed glass, and that is the last iPhone that you could replace the glass, where you could replace the glass only and not have to replace the entire screen. With a 4 and up, you had to replace the LCD and the glass, but here and all the iPhones below, you could just replace the glass. So that's what I did, the digitizer, and it's back, and it's looking good. And also, it's fully working, and it runs iOS 4. And iOS 4, guys, is the iOS version that David and me started off. We both had an iPhone 4. That was our first iPhone. We'll come to that one in a second. But it was running iOS 4, and we started off with iOS 4. This is running 4.1, and again has been downgraded from iOS 6. This thing can actually go up to iOS 6, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's also jailbroken. Everything works. No front-facing camera yet, only back camera. And it's also missing the volume buttons. I don't know how that happened, what they did there, but they're gone. And yeah, it's kind of shit to use, but we have to deal with that. Apart from that, it's working beautifully. I think it has a SIM lock though, because those were the days until iPhone 5S and so, where every carrier had their own SIM lock and you had to get scammed to unlock it, and it was terrible times. But yeah, it's not that like anybody's using that anymore nowadays. But hey, if you want a telephone, I couldn't telephone with it, with my carrier. So 16 gigabyte model in black. I think those were also available in white. 16 was again the higher end option. Back then 8 gigabytes was more popular, but this is a 16, yes. So that's a 3GS, still had the old school iPhone border, like aluminium here. And yeah, I think this also still looks pretty retro, and it does still look pretty cool. Next up, let's move to Android. That's a phone you have seen on the channel already. Samsung Galaxy S. Galaxy S1. Because now we are at S20, but that's not because there were 20 models. They just decided to jump 10 numbers randomly from the S10. I don't know why they did it. But I decided to get this. Not because it's some sort of crazy collectible phone like the 2G iPhone. I think this deserves more attention. This started off the very, very popular Samsung Galaxy lineup. And it was a pretty good phone back then. It was pretty big, powerful, and this one is in immaculate condition too. Yes, it's got a little crack up there, but I gotta say, I mean, this isn't the best plastic out there. This is a pretty cheap plastic. Samsung definitely upped their quality in their smartphones over the years, because this is not the best plastic. But apart from that, the screen here is in perfect condition. I also have the whole accessories for it with the box and all that. So that's one phone. If it was collectible, it would be worth something, but it is not. The S1 is like, it's not worth anything. Couple of bucks. I paid €5 for this, which is a shame. As you see, the eagle eye amongst you knows that this is not the original operating system, and I'm glad that it isn't, because the original operating system was Android 2.2, and you can watch me installing it. But Android 2.2, especially with the TouchWiz that Samsung has, it was running really slow, sluggish, and just not really nicely. But here, I upgraded this to a later Android, and boy, it runs so well. Android 4.2.2, which is considerably more modern than 2.2, but also, apart from the functionality, it just runs faster and smoother. Don't ask me how that is possible, but maybe they've just nailed the optimization, and also the Cyanogen mod people. They probably did a great job porting that over to here, the S1, because after all, you know, this is a phone with 512 megabytes of RAM, which is not a lot. It's like nothing nowadays, but it's enough to run Android 4.2 very smooth and very fast. Now you could even go crazy and like upgrade this to an even newer version. I just held off doing that because I was fearing that it might just get sluggish, because after all, it's an old phone. Hello. It's a phone app I used to play around with a lot. And yeah, it's got this little sliding door, which is always missing on my friends' phones. It was always missing. And also this one still works perfectly, nothing wrong with it. And I love it. It's a nice piece of Samsung history, even though everybody just doesn't give a crap about it. I think it deserves way more attention. And it's probably that I'm gonna start a Samsung collection if I find good deals or so, because the S2s, they're also not worth anything. I might as well get an S3 because there's just so many. That's why they're probably not worth anything too, but I find them cool to collect, so might as well start a Samsung collection in the future. That is the S1. Oh yeah, and about the storage, I have no idea. Let's see. Let's go to here, storage, and we got 2 gigabytes. No, not even 1.46 gigabytes of internal storage, which is always partitioned in Android. So we get here around 6. I would say it's around 8 gigabytes of internal storage, which is, fine. And I gotta say, I gotta hand it to Samsung. Like the Apple fanboy I was back then would have never said that, but this screen does look much better than the iPhone screen, especially when you compare it to, for example, the 3GS, which is not quite the competitor. The competitor is the 4, which is a way better screen, but the 3GS's screen is just not as nice. The colors are not as great, viewing angles aren't as great, resolution isn't as great, and so yeah. But hey, I still think back in the day, iOS was better. Nowadays, I couldn't tell you which operating system is more superior. Probably none of both. I just prefer iOS for my daily needs, but I like to play around with Android way more because I find iOS quite boring. But it works, and that's why I have it on my daily phone. Anyway, Galaxy S1. I quite like it. Also has a front-facing camera. Alright, next, that's gonna be a quick one. iPhone 4, destroyed, absolutely destroyed, completely trashed. Power button dead, battery dead, screen cable ripped, speaker dead. It's basically just a junk phone, but hey, I kept it because it looks cool. That's really the only reason. I have no idea how much storage, probably 16 gigabytes or maybe even like the 8 gig, who knows. I don't know how I got hold of this, but I have it and had it ever since. So I think I bought that off a friend years back and he had an iCloud login or something. What do I know? Now we come to a very special phone. My very first Apple iPhone. That is my first iPhone. And also my second smartphone in general. Just gonna put it out of its case there for a second. This iPhone has been with me for now, how long? Oh my god, 9 years? Can you believe that? 9 freaking years. That was my first iPhone. You don't believe what I did with this phone. I jailbroke it back and forth on iOS 5, iOS 6, iOS 7. Those were the glorious jailbreaking days. I installed all the tweaks. I even modded Siri on here, the 3D maps and all that. Oh my god. Put Activator on it. Programmed it to do some cool stuff. Those were the days. This is a 16 gigabyte GSM model. It is scuffed up. It had a rough life. And I still use it, guys, as my MP3 player because I'm one of those couple of guys that doesn't care too much about streaming services for music. And so I like to have my own sort of iPod. I originally did that because I didn't have enough space on my iPhone, like my daily iPhone on the SE. I mean, this has joined me through with the iPhone 5S I had the iPhone SE number 1, SE number 2, and now iPhone 7. This has always been alongside with it, listening to music in my car most of the time, and also on holidays or so I would plug in my headphones. Look at that headphone jack, like on a plane or anything, just listen to my stuff without internet connection, and I like it. Now it's kind of filling up pretty good, So let's see how much we've left. 647 megabytes. A couple of songs can still fit on here, but not a lot anymore, unfortunately. So I don't know what I'll do then, but I've just gradually over the years extended my iTunes library and added new songs, new CDs I had, and all these playlists I like to listen to. And oh my god, now this isn't a flawless iPhone anymore. I mean, I can't blame it. It just has been through all this mess. Even the battery is still holding up pretty well. I have always Wi-Fi turned off and Bluetooth turned on, and yeah, but I mean, it isn't as great anymore as it was, but oh my god, I can't complain about that. Now, it has some flaws. The volume buttons, they don't work anymore. They just gone inwards and never came back. It's a pretty common issue in iPhone 4s, but mine never had that for a very long time, and I've used this heavily. Thankfully, the power button still works, and the home button still works, and the speakers also don't work. So, I mean, the only thing I care about is that the touchscreen works, that I can see that the home button works and the Bluetooth works. This is all it has to do, and the headphone jack works too. So apart from that, it doesn't need to do all that much. By the way, I've got the question not only once that if this is like some Nazi symbol. No, it is not. It is Österreichisches Schwarzes Kreuz. It is those guys who dig in the dead people at the graveyard. I don't know how that is called in English. Every year I give them like €1 or €2, and in return they give me this sticker. And I don't know why I started putting these stickers on here, but I did. And so yeah, but no, it's not any kind of racist like institution. It's just it's kind of a weird symbol, I know, but if you look closely and read, you can figure it out by yourself. Now, I also, fun story, painted that in school, this casing with a marker I had, and it stayed like this orange, and I kind of like it. It still stayed like this because this was once transparent, it was translucent, but it's not. It's like not even wearing off or anything. I don't know why this kept so well. So here's my backstory about that. These, by the way, on this iPhone, were also the first YouTube videos shot on this channel. Crazy stuff, right? 720p camera. Oh yeah. Right, let's move on to the next couple of last ones. Now this is another Android phone, another Samsung, and I got that because this, guys, was my first smartphone. Now, not particularly this one, because my real Galaxy A's I had back then, it's, by the way, Samsung Galaxy A's, not S, A's, I destroyed that. It doesn't exist anymore. But this one, I bought it for, I don't know, $3. So I did a flea market. I just had to get it. Funny enough, I have even the box for it and some documentation and another back cover, and it is in immaculate condition. These phones arguably are junk. These are pretty bad phones. Those were the cheap budget option in 2010, guys. 10 years ago. Maybe 2011, who knows. But no, probably 2010. I mean, nowadays, budget phones are just great to use. But back then, no. It just starts with a touch screen. It's not very responsive. Now, it is not as bad as I remember it, to be honest with you. But if you look, for example, here at the unlocking, just look at it. Come on, boot up here. It isn't even smooth on unlocking. Now, when that was actually an argument for an iPhone back then. For example, here, iPhone 4 and iOS 5, by the way, forgot to tell that. I downgraded it to 5.1.1 because it runs much faster. The unlocking is smooth as hell. The touchscreen is effortless smooth. On this one, not so much. Also, it was having a like 600 megahertz processor, which, was pretty slow. I think around 256 megabytes of RAM. I really wanted to put another like custom ROM on here just to see how it behaves, because now it's running the stock gingerbread 2.33, which is pretty boring as we all know it, seen a million of times. And it's slow, an old phone, you know, nothing special. But maybe I can like put Android 4 or something on here and see how it behaves. Probably pretty poorly because of RAM. But I just bought that because I wanted to go back this route. This was my first ever touchscreen phone. Before that, I always had flip phones. I had a Sony Ericsson, another Samsung flip phone, and nothing touchscreeny. But this was my first touchscreen smartphone. Let's just go check out the camera. As you can see, the lag party all the time. Yeah, the camera was pretty alright, I'd say. It's not terrible, I mean, for the time. And yeah, pretty small screen, even smaller than an iPhone screen. And that's just, I want to bring back, I don't know if you lived through this era, probably you did. Maybe you're just too young to remember that exactly. But back then, this was a big screen. A 3.5-inch screen was actually big. And then came the iPhone 5, which was even bigger, as you can see. So, I mean, nowadays, this is tiny. Nowadays, this is actually a small phone. And now let's look at here the size. iPhone 7, which is a couple of years old, against the Galaxy A's. I mean, check out the screen difference. It's crazy how big phones have gotten. And this is like the smaller option. Then we have the 7 Plus, which is even bigger. And the whatever iPhone XS Max that is nowadays, or 11 Pro Max that we have nowadays. Just crazy big screens. But yeah, I mean, it runs pretty slow. I don't know how much storage it has. Not a lot, probably, because they had to save on everything, basically, cheap out on everything. This wasn't an expensive phone back then. It was pretty affordable. I think it cost around $300, something around that. Where can I see that? Let's go here, info. GTS 80, yeah, so and so. SD card, and yeah, there you go. 1.83 gigabytes total storage. Yeah, you could put in an SD card. Oh, those were the days where you could put in SD cards in every phone except iPhone, as always. I mean, 2 gigabytes, not even 2 gigabytes. Even back then, guys, that wasn't a whole lot. Because you had, for example, here 3GS with 16 gigabytes available. Well, most of them were 8, but yeah, I mean, that's like, it's crazy. It's more than double. For example, iPhone 3GS 8 gigabytes has more than double of the storage than this. This had 2, this had 8, this particular had 16, and it's crazy. So yeah, Galaxy A's. Cute little phone nowadays. I decided to keep that or buy that just for retro purposes, just for flashbacks and all that. Maybe I'll do a video on it, putting a cool ROM on here. That would be kind of interesting. I think Budget Builds Official has done one. I'm not sure if it's exactly this phone though. Could be like an S2 Mini too, because they all look so similar. Samsung made like, I don't know, millions and millions of these S Minis, and who knows exactly how much they made. Probably not even they know that themselves. Now let's move on to the last two here. Both of them are broken. This one is very broken, but it can be revived. It has a screwed up firmware on it, and also the problem is that would be not a hard fix, but it has a broken home button too, and I can't get it into DFU. And I don't know, what's up with it. It has a working screen, I know that, because I managed to get like a glance of an Apple logo on here at one point. But I tried so many methods. I need to replace that home button. I think I even bought it, but I lost track of where it is, which is pretty bad. Yeah, 3G iPhone, 8 gigabytes. Back then they still wrote the gigabytes on the back, just like on the iPods. This is a 3G and 3GS. Both of them look the same. None of them is thinner. This is a little more powerful. Actually, it's quite more powerful than that one. This supports iOS 4.2. at the most, and there I'm told it runs pretty crap. But I know that you can downgrade this to a cool iOS 2.0. So if I ever get this running, I want to put iOS 2.0 on here. iPhone OS 2, that's what it was called originally. Just to, for retro purposes, have this old iOS version on here. So the second ever iPhone made, 3G connectivity. I don't know about processor speed. It was probably a tiny bit faster than the original iPhone, but not all that much. I really want to get like a original iPhone 2G, but they're so expensive. Oh my god. So yeah, probably the only collectible smartphone that I know is the iPhone 2G. The rest is just material, not worth anything. So yeah, 3G iPhone. And last but not least, iPhone 4S. This is one you might have seen on this channel before if you're a loyal viewer. We tried replacing the screen, and we almost did it, but unfortunately, we ripped the touchscreen connector. No, not touchscreen connector, the touchscreen flex cable. And so, unfortunately, we don't have touchscreen. Nothing. Just dead. Which makes an iPhone pretty useless. When it still had the internet connection, yeah, I could even shut up, please. I could say to Siri, play music or something, and play this and that, or open website, make it like a voice control only. But unfortunately, I changed my router, and so that is gone too. So now it's completely offline, and it will not be online unless I fix the touchscreen to get inside here. Yeah, it's running iOS 6, and it is, I think, a not 32 gig, probably 16 gig model. I don't really know. Could be an 8 as well. Oh my god, I don't know. I'd love to repair it. Really, it's, by the way, my only white iPhone. That is the reason why I repaired it in the first place, because the rest of them are all black. But this one is white. Unfortunately, I'm afraid it's just cheaper to buy another 4S than replacing that screen again and failing at it again, probably. Because, oh my god, like, replacing a screen on an iPhone 4 and 4S is just pure pain. I don't want to do it ever again. It is a terrible procedure. Oh my god. But after that, iPhone 5 and up, it's pretty simple. But this is just pure hell with their screws in the corners, and oh my god, total pain. I might just get like a 4S that's iCloud locked and swap over the motherboard. That is something I was thinking about. I just never did that because, I had other plans and other things. But yeah, iPhone 4Ss, they go for nothing. They're really cheap. And was the first iPhone with Siri and all that. So I might as well just get another one with iCloud lock, swap that board in here, because I do have some cool software on here and cool like files, but can't really use it all that much without a touch screen. So those are all the phones. If you were to lay them out generation wise, like from release year and all that, you would do it this way: iPhone 4, 4S, another 4 there. That one comes probably here before, just right before the 4. 3GS comes definitely. Is that the 3G? That is the 3G. That is the 3GS. The 3GS comes there. 3G comes here. Galaxy S1 probably comes in here. Like, it was also a competitor to the iPhone 4. Can't really remember if it was released before or not, but I think after the 4. And of course, iPhone 5 comes right after the 4S. And then iPhone SE and 7. So, yeah, I remember these cool YouTube videos where they would lay them out all side by side and make this one slide to unlock, like, motion. That was always their shit back then, but nowadays we have other ways of unlocking, fingerprint, facial recognition, not even a button anymore. So So here, little trip down memory lane, history, smartphone collection. I quite enjoy it. I will try to get more of these things, maybe more special ones like an iPhone 2G or something, and maybe a Nokia with Windows Phone. That would be interesting as well. But hey, those are all the smartphones. Hope you like it. It's a pretty long video, I know, but there's just so much to tell. You know, there's a story to all of them. So I hope you like it, and I will see you in the next video.